James makes $68,000 a year. He is not exceptional in any way that shows up on a resume. He does not work in finance. He does not have a side business generating passive income. He does not have a wealthy family, an inheritance, or a particularly interesting investment story to tell at dinner parties. What James does have, at 47 years old, is a net worth of $1.1 million. When people hear that and ask how he did it, they tend to expect a complicated answer, a stock tip he got at the right time, a real estate deal that turned out unusually well, something clever that sounds replicable in theory, but unrealistic in practice. What James tells them instead is the answer that sounds too simple to be satisfying. He saved a consistent percentage of his income starting in his mid-20s, put it in the right accounts in the right order, did not touch it, and waited. That is the whole answer. And this video is the blueprint behind it. Not inspiration, not general encouragement, but the specific, ordered method that actually produces the outcome. Before the blueprint, the calculation that makes it plausible on a $68,000 salary. At that income, take-home pay after federal tax, state tax, and FICA contributions runs roughly $50,000 annually, about $4,200 monthly. If James saves and invests 20% of his gross income, $13,600 per year, or roughly $1,130 monthly, at a historically average market return of 8% annually, the following happens. After 10 years, he has approximately $200,000. After 20 years, roughly $660,000. After 30 years, just over $1.5 million. Not from a high salary, not from stock picking, from 20% saved consistently at market average returns for 30 years. The math works on a below-average income too. It just takes a little longer. And it breaks down at any income if the saving rate is too low or the contributions keep getting interrupted. James started at 26. He reached $1 million at 45. That's 19 years, not 30, because his rate was slightly higher in his best earning years, and he received a few pay increases that he directed straight to savings rather than lifestyle. But the core mechanism was exactly this calculation, running uninterrupted in the background of an ordinary life. Step 1. The correct savings rate. The first real decision is the number. What percentage of gross income goes to saving and investing every month without exception? Financial planners broadly agree on 15 to 20% as the range that produces reliable long-term wealth on a working-class income with a 30 to 40-year horizon. Below 10%, the math becomes marginal, reachable in theory, but dependent on exceptional returns that cannot be planned around. Above 25% on a modest income, the lifestyle compression starts to feel genuinely punishing in ways that make the habit difficult to sustain. James settled on 20% early and treated it as non-negotiable. Not a goal to approach in good months, but a bill that got paid first, automatically, the day his paycheck arrived. The apartment rent was not optional. The utilities were not optional. The 20% was not optional. Everything else got budgeted from what remained. This framing, saving as the first bill rather than the last consideration, is the single behavioral shift that separates people who build wealth on average incomes from people who intend to build it someday. The intent never survives contact with spending. The automated transfer does. Step 2. The account order. The accounts matter nearly as much as the savings rate, because identical contributions in the wrong accounts produce a meaningfully worse outcome than the same contributions in the right ones. The correct sequence is not complicated, but it is specific. First, contribute to an employer-sponsored retirement plan up to the maximum employer match. An employer matching 50% of contributions is an immediate, guaranteed 50% return before a single investment decision is made. This is the highest return action in the entire wealth-building sequence, and skipping it to do anything else first is declining part of your compensation. Second, open and fully fund a Roth IRA. The 2026 limit is $7,500 annually. Contributions go in after tax and then grow entirely tax-free. Every dollar of compounding growth, every dollar withdrawn in retirement, belongs completely to James with no further government claim. For someone on a moderate income likely to earn more in the future than they earn now, paying tax on contributions at today's lower rate rather than tomorrow's higher rate is a structural advantage. James prioritized this account every year without exception, starting at 26. Third, if savings capacity remains after the match and the Roth, return to the 401k and contribute up to the annual employee limit. The tax deduction on contributions reduces taxable income in the contribution year, and the money compounds tax-deferred until withdrawal. Fourth, and finally, anything beyond those limits goes into a standard taxable brokerage account. Broadly diversified, low-cost index funds held consistently without active trading. Step 3. What to actually invest in. This is where most beginners spend the most energy and where the answer is probably simpler than expected. The research on actively managed funds against passive index funds is consistent and has been replicated over many decades. The large majority of professional fund managers underperform a simple index benchmark over 15-year periods. These are people with significant analytical resources, research teams, and full-time focus on the task. The logical response is not to try to do better than the professionals on a part-time basis. It is to buy the index and capture the market return without paying for someone else's underperformance. A two-fund portfolio, a domestic total market index fund, and an international total market index fund, covers thousands of individual companies across dozens of countries. Both should have expense ratios well below 0.25% annually. This combination is less exciting than individual stock picking. It is also what actually produces the outcome James experienced, because it runs efficiently and consistently without requiring attention or decisions. Step 4. The behavior that keeps the engine running. The math above works. The behavior of maintaining it for 19 years while life keeps happening is the harder part. The part most content glosses over because it is genuinely unglamorous. There will be downturns. James watched his account fall meaningfully during at least 2 significant market declines over his investing years. Both times, the instinct was to stop contributions, move to cash, wait for conditions to improve. Both times, he did nothing. He had decided in advance that market declines meant he was buying the same index fund at a temporary discount, and he held that framing even when it felt like self-deception. Research on investor behavior across market cycles consistently finds the same pattern. The average investor significantly underperforms the funds they are invested in, almost entirely due to selling during downturns and buying back after recoveries. The gap between what the market returns and what the average person captures is driven by behavior, not investment selection. James captured close to the market return because he never sold. That decision, boring, passive, requiring nothing except inaction, is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over a career of investing. There will also be income increases. James received several. Every time, he directed the majority of the raise into his savings rate before his lifestyle had time to adjust to the new income. The first month after any raise feels like a windfall. By the third month, it feels like baseline. Capturing it before that adjustment happens is the single most reliable way to accelerate toward the milestone without any additional sacrifice. $1 million on a $68,000 salary is not a trick or exception. It is arithmetic. The inputs are a savings rate held at 20%, contributions directed through tax-advantaged accounts in the correct order, invested in low-cost index funds, and left alone for long enough that compounding does the majority of the work. The average American saves somewhere around 3 to 4% of income. The gap between that and 20% is not a gap in knowledge. Almost everyone who reads this far knows they should be saving more. It is a gap in systems. The person who saves 20% has automated it and made it non-negotiable. The person saving 3% has not yet made that structural decision. The milestone is available on an ordinary income. The method is not complicated. The only variable that is genuinely hard is the one that is entirely within reach. Deciding to build the system this week and then not interrupting it for 19 years. James would tell you it goes faster than it sounds. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think in the comments and like and subscribe to James Invests for more content like this.